Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can see me and hear me. If you can, please let me know in the chat area. Can you see me and hear? Hi, everyone. Okay, please let me know in the chat area if you can hear me and see me. Hopefully you can. I had to restart this, so hopefully you guys all get back in. I know there are some of you in here already, and you got kicked out. Please let me know in the chat if you can hear me and see me. Can you hear me and see me? Please let me know in the chat. I haven't heard anyone, no one said that they can hear me and see me yet. Make sure when you're typing it says to all panelists and attendees. Welcome everyone that's just joining in now. Please let me know if you can hear me and see me. Oh, good. You can hear and see me. Thank you. Okay, we're going to get started in just a couple minutes. For any questions that you have, please put them in the Q&A section. So there's a button right down below the video where you'll see Q&A, and that's where I'll be looking for questions. The chat is where you guys can just chat amongst yourself. I'll try to keep an eye there too, but I'm mostly going to be looking at the Q&A section to get your questions answered. So on this call, if you have any questions relating to the actuarial career, passing exams, getting a job, anything like that, I'll be answering in this webinar. Just 1 second. Okay. Welcome everyone. For those of you that just joined, I just want to let you know that you guys can type any questions that you have in the Q&A section. So there's a button down right below me where you can type questions relating to the actuarial field, anything to do with studying for your exams, passing exams, getting a job, anything like that relating to the actuarial field, we will talk about today. So put your questions in the Q&A section, please. I'm going to get started with some questions that I got through email from people that couldn't attend. So we'll start with those. And if you guys have any more questions along the way, just keep asking them in the Q&A section, okay? So let's get right into these questions. Okay. So the first one comes from Johnny, and he says, how many exams should I pass before applying for an actuarial job? Typically, I say that you should start applying for a job once you pass your first exam. It's unlikely that you're going to get one because most employers are looking for people to have passed 2 to 3 exams by the time they start their first work experience, but there's no harm in trying and applying to positions even when you just have one exam passed. So as soon as you get that first one passed, start working on your resume, get it really good, like make it really good. As part of your membership in the study strategy program, you also get access to my job search program. So after you pass your first exam, you should move over to the job search program, and that's where you can go through the resume course that's there. We can fix up your resume and make sure it's the best it can possibly be, and then start looking for actuarial jobs. But don't spend too much time on this when you just passed one exam, unless you're looking for an internship. But if you're looking for a full-time job, then you don't want to spend too much time on this, because it's unlikely that you're going to be able to find a job, but it's definitely worth a try to just see if you possibly could get one with just having the one exam passed. There were a couple of follow-up questions to that. I understand there are 2 certification levels. What are the benefits of receiving each level? Do most actuaries reach the highest level? So in this question, I believe he's asking about an associate level actuary and a fellowship level actuary. So if you decide to go the SOA route, which is the Society of Actuaries, you can either become an ASA, which is an associate of the Society of Actuaries, or you can become a fellow of the Society of Actuaries. You have to become an associate before you become a fellow, and there are a few more requirements that you have to meet, some more exams and courses and stuff that you have to pass in order to go from being an associate to a fellow. If you decide to go the casualty route, then you can become an associate of the Casualty Actuarial Society, which is an ACAS. Or then after you've achieved that, you can move on and pass more exams, do a few more courses and stuff like that, and then you can become a fellow of the Casualty Actuarial Society. I would say most people probably start off aiming to become fellows, but a lot of the time things get in the way. They decide they don't want to become an actuary anymore, or just all the requirements are just too much for them to handle during their with all their other stuff going on. So they decide not to go all the way to fellowship. You can continue a career as an actuary just as an associate. It's just that you're not going to get paid as much, and it might limit the positions that you're able to get in the future. Because if you're not a fellow, then there are certain positions that employers won't even consider you for, like upper management level positions. But you certainly can have a full career as an associate. If you decide not to even pursue associateship, then you might have a tough time getting other positions once you make that decision. So for example, if you are working at a company and while you're at that company, you decide that you're no longer going to pursue associateship, they might keep you on even though you're not going to pursue associateship. But if you try to go to another company after that and tell them that, you don't want to pursue that anymore, it might make them not want to hire you. Okay, there's one other question here. Shadow. Sorry, my cat wants to lay up here. Okay, do most actuarial employers provide study time for their employees? And the answer is yes. If you're in an actuarial position, you will likely get study time that you can use at your own discretion, whenever you want to use it usually. It's the amount of time that you'll get is different depending on the company that you're working for and the exam that you're writing, and maybe even your seniority in the company. But most employers do provide paid study time for you. Okay, that is all of Johnny's questions. Next, we'll move on to some of the questions that you guys have, and then I have a few more in the emails too. Okay, in an interview, when they ask about my knowledge about Excel, what should I say? What do they look for? I worked with Excel, but I don't know if my knowledge is good enough or not. Okay, Excel is really important for actuarial positions, and the more that you know, the better. If you can get Excel experience in a workplace setting, that's even better because it's easier to put it on your resume. I know that if you know Excel but you haven't really had much work experience using Excel, it's a bit more difficult to get it on your resume, but it's just a challenge you have to work around. You definitely should put on your resume that you have Excel skills if you do. During an interview, if they ask about your Excel knowledge, then you just have to tell them the types of functions that you know, when you've used it, and how you've used it. If you've created a lot of charts and tables in Excel, you could talk about that and how it was beneficial for the company that you did that for. Employers tend to look for a fairly I'd say a beginner's knowledge of Excel, but you want to have a fairly good knowledge of Excel. I don't think they want necessarily be looking for someone that has advanced Excel knowledge. Of course, that would be beneficial if you did. But if you have a beginner's level knowledge in Excel, then that should be good enough for most employers. I recommend, if you haven't already looked into the TIA Technical Skills course, they have they teach about a bunch of different programs on there, but Excel is one of them. So that would be a good place to go if you haven't already taken that course. And then you can put that directly onto your resume that you've taken that course. In 2020, I'm also going to start offering Excel training sessions. They'll be live interactive sessions, so you'll be following along right at the same time as me, and if you're running into trouble, I can help you right on the spot. So that's another place you can go to get some Excel help. If you're concerned that your knowledge of Excel isn't good enough, then you just have to keep on improving it. Most likely, if you do have a beginner's knowledge, then you're probably okay. But if you have some more time to learn more advanced things, then that's definitely going to be beneficial for you. Okay, next. How do I get an internship? Okay, this is a very broad question, but I recommend that before you even start looking for internships, you try to pass at least one exam. When employers are looking for interns, they're typically looking for someone with 1 to 2 exams passed already. So you'll want to have that out of the way, probably exam P and FM. Also, you'd want to have a pretty good knowledge of Excel. That will really help put you at the top of the pack when it comes to candidates applying for those positions. And you need to have a really good resume. So like I said, if you are going to start looking for an internship, then it's best if you go into the job search program, which is also part of your membership. And then we can fix up your resume, make sure it's the best it can possibly be. Because what I've found is that a lot of people have some actuarial or some experience that isn't specifically related to actuarial work, and it's hard for them to turn that experience into experience that an actuarial employer would be interested in. So in the resume or in the job search program, I've really been helping people get their resume to a place where actuarial employers will be interested in them, even if they don't have like actuarial related experience. So those are the 3 most important things to make sure that you do when you're looking for an internship is get your at least 1 exam passed, make sure you have a beginner's knowledge of Excel, and also a very good resume. You'll want to make sure all 3 of those things are in place in order to get an internship. On top of that, you want to make sure that you're applying to tons and tons of internship positions. Try not to limit yourself too much geographically. If you get actuarial internship experience, you're going to have a really, really, really good advantage over other people that are applying to full-time entry-level positions that don't have that experience. So getting internship actuarial experience is definitely important. Do whatever you can to get it. So if you do have to move away for a couple months or something just to get that experience, it's really going to help you in the end. So I highly recommend you do whatever it takes to get an internship. Okay, next. Would you have to do an Excel test or a software test during an actuarial interview? This is something that some employers do and others don't. So a lot of the time, if they are going to do an Excel test per se for you, they'll let you know that ahead of time. And I'm not exactly sure how the test works because I have never done one, but what I assume is that they just ask you different questions and you have to do something in Excel to make sure that you know how to do those functions in Excel or something like that. I actually wrote a blog post a while ago on Excel and what you need to know. I think if you, let me see if I can find that for you. Excel for Actuaries. Yeah, there we go. So I will put in the chat area. That Excel blog post tells you everything that you need to know for an entry-level actuarial positions. And before I wrote that post, I did some research about what people have often had to do when they are doing that Excel test. So that was a while ago for me. I forget exactly what I found, but you should have a read through that and get some specifics on what employers are actually looking for when they do that Excel test and what kind of tasks you might be asked to do. Okay. Next question is, I am considering also working as a data analyst to start in the field. Currently, I'm pursuing a Coursera certificate in R programming. Does that seem like a good use of time? Any thoughts on learning programming languages? Okay, so a data analyst position is very good experience for an actuarial job down the road. So that's great that you're doing that. So you're pursuing a Coursera certificate in R programming. Personally, I've heard that people sometimes do use R on the job. I never had to, so I'm not exactly sure what they would be using that for or why, but programming in general is very beneficial for an actuarial career. A lot of the time you can fairly easily learn one language and then transfer what you know from that one language to another language. So in my experience, I used VBA, which is coding for Excel, all the time at work. And I imagine that if you know how to use R fairly well, that you'll pretty easily be able to transfer those skills to VBA or any other programming language that your company, your actuarial position might need down the road. But it's great that you're going to be able to say on your resume that you know how to program in R, and that will let employers know that you have the ability to learn programming languages. And a lot of them know that, well, pretty much all of the employers will know that coding skills are pretty transferable between the different languages. So personally, I don't tell people to go and learn programming in R. I would recommend VBA before R, but I do think that this is still going to be beneficial for you. Okay, next question. I took exam P and the questions were worded a lot harder than all of the practice exams and questions. How do I prepare better next time? Okay, well, I always emphasize doing practice problems from a bunch of different sources. So I'm not 100% sure if you were in the study strategy program for your exam P attempt last time, but in the program, I make sure to have everyone do questions from the Society of Actuaries, do TIA practice questions from the ASM and ACTEC study manual and GOAL. Some people use ADAPT. So that right there that I just mentioned are 7 different sources of practice problems that you could do. So it's really important that you do tons of different questions, like hundreds of questions, and you do them from different sources. Sometimes people just do the SOA questions, and that's not good enough because those SOA questions all have the same kind of style, I guess you could say. But when you move to different questions, like maybe the TIA ones or the ASM questions, they're written by different authors. And sometimes different authors word things in different ways, and they just have a different way of asking questions. So when you get exposure to all those different variety of authors and types of questions and everything, it really makes you more prepared for the exam, because you never know what kind of questions you're going to get on the real exam. Okay, hopefully that answers your question for you, Natalie. Next is, I am currently a claims intern. I know that is not very related to actuary, but this is only an internship I have nearby. Is it okay to continue to be in this field? Actually, that sounds like it would be fairly good for an actuarial position. Of course, I'm not 100% sure what a claims intern does, but I imagine that you're dealing with insurance claims. Positions like this help you get a really good understanding of how insurance works. So that's something that you're definitely going to be able to bring to an actuarial position. A lot of candidates don't really know how insurance even works completely. So having that background and knowledge in the claims department is going to be helpful in getting an actuarial position. So I definitely think that's a good place for you to be, and I would continue doing your internship. That's good. That will be a great experience. What's really important is that when you put this experience on your resume, you're showing employers how what you did in the claims department is related to the actuarial work that you will be doing in an actuarial position. So when you're applying for jobs, make sure that you're looking at the skills and knowledge that actuarial employers are hoping or they're looking for, and make sure that the experience on your resume displays that you have that knowledge and experience from your past positions. Okay, next one here is, how many exams should I pass if I'm in college? I would say pass at most 3 exams. If you're in Canada, then you may want to pass 4 or 5. The job market in Canada is a bit more competitive than it is in the US, so some people are passing more than 3 exams when they're in Canada. If you're in the US, then 3 should be enough, but even 3 is more than most people will probably have. If you're still in college, most people probably have 2 exams passed by the time they are done their degree. But the more you can get, the better, typically. You don't want to get like five exams. In the US, you wouldn't want to have 5 exams passed and no experience. But if you have 3 exams passed and no experience, that should be fine. Okay, next question is, how do I apply for VEE? Do I necessarily do that? Okay, so there are 3 VEE credits that you need to get. To apply for them, you just go onto the actuarial or the SOA website, soa.org website, and I'm not exactly sure. You can search in Google like VEE credits for SOA or something, and I'm sure their website will show up. And then you just go there, you press some buttons and apply for the VEE credits. You have to either have passed a certain course in that related topic to the VEE that you're applying for. So I'm pretty sure TIA and maybe ACTEX have VEE related courses that if you go through those and pass their final test at the end, then you'll be able to apply for the credit through the SOA. Another option is to get your VEE credits through school. So if you get good enough grades in certain courses, then you will be able to apply for the VEE credit and get it based on just your grades in certain courses in school. But you have to achieve a higher than a certain grade to be able to qualify to get that VEE credit. Typically, I don't recommend you apply for the VEE credits before you actually started working in an actuarial position, because Typically, they're not going to help you get a job. Employers don't really care whether you've passed the VAE credits or not, or whether you've got them. But if you apply for those credits after you've already started working, your employer will pay for them. So I would just hold off on applying for them until after you've already got an actuarial position. Okay, next question. How long does it take to finish fellowship of an actuary? So how long does it take to become a fellow? It really depends on the person. It depends how committed you are to studying. It depends on whether you pass or fail all your exams. It depends on your work-life balance. Like, do you have lots of other things going on in your life other than studying for exams? So maybe someone that has a family is going to take longer than someone that is single and doesn't have anything much else to do other than study. So there are so many different factors that go into how long it takes to become a fellow. But for most people, it's about between 5 and 10 years. I'd say the majority of people are around the middle of their 7 to 8 years or so, because becoming a fellow in just 5 years would be pretty difficult, but it does happen for some people. Okay, next one. Keep the questions coming. There are lots here. If you have any questions, keep on asking them in the Q&A section, even if they come up while I'm answering another one. A lot of the time I answer a question and that triggers another question in your mind. So if you have more, just keep asking. Okay, is data analysis in Excel helpful? Yes, actuaries do a lot of data analysis in Excel. So if you are taking a course in that or something, I'm not 100% sure what you mean by data analysis in Excel, but if that's a course or something, it would definitely be helpful for an actuarial job because, like I said, Excel is used all the time by actuaries, so it's a very beneficial skill to know. Anything that you can do in Excel is going to help in getting an actuarial position. So that is helpful. Data analysis in Excel is helpful. Okay, so next question is which course, TIA? I'm guessing that you're talking about the Excel course that I mentioned. There's a course called the TIA, which is the Infinite Actuary Technical Skills course, and it goes through several different programs that you might learn as an actuary. It's specifically designed for people that want to be an actuary. So I actually haven't gone through the course myself, but I assume it relates it all back to actuarial work, and it just talks about how you might use each of those programs in an actuarial setting. So it's called the Infinite Actuary Technical Skills course. Okay, what do actuaries use Excel for? So Excel is used for so many things. It can be used for data analysis. It can be used for simple calculations. It can be used for creating reports. And actually, I'm pretty sure in that blog post that I mentioned earlier about Excel, there's still a link to that in the chat. I talk about the different ways that actuaries use Excel and go into a lot more detail about how they would do that. So yeah, they just use it for so many things. Calculators, analyzing data and putting it all into one report that's easy to understand and show to other people so that they easily understand. It can be used just for so many things. We use it all the time as actuaries. VBA is, like I said, a coding language in Excel, so you can make Excel do certain things without you even having to press the buttons yourself. And VBA comes in really useful because in actuarial work, especially in entry-level actuarial work, there are a lot of tasks that are very repetitive in Excel, and you just do the same thing every time. And you can use VBA to program Excel to do that for you automatically so that you don't have to keep on repeating the same process over and over and over again. Okay, what job search websites are the best for getting an actuarial position? Really, there's not a particular website that's better than all the others. I would just Google Excel, or not Excel jobs, actuarial entry-level positions, look for actuarial internships in your area probably, and just see what comes up. I'm sure there are jobs posted on Workopolis, and I'm in Canada, so we might have different job search boards than you have, but there's Indeed. Those are the two I can think of off the top of my head. But don't limit yourself to a certain job search website. Use them all, because some of them might find different jobs that the other one didn't have. So there's no particular one that's better than all the rest. I just recommend you go to all of them to try your best in applying to all the jobs that are available. One thing that a lot of people often miss is they just look at the job search boards, but instead you also want to make sure that you're looking at company websites that are around you. And a lot of the time they will have a careers section or a job opportunities section, and you can go there and see if they have any actuarial positions posted directly on their website. So if you're not already doing that, definitely start looking at insurance companies that are around you and see if they have any job postings for actuarial positions right on their website. Okay, next, is it possible to get internship in the US if I'm living outside of the US? I'm sure it's possible to do that. I'm not exactly sure how visas and everything work. I know it's probably going to be a bit more work for someone that is not living in the US to get an internship in the US, but that doesn't mean that it's not possible. What I would recommend is that you pretty much do the same thing as everyone else. You have to make sure that you have your Excel skills, a good resume, you have some exams passed. Those three things are going to make you one of the better candidates applying. And since there is extra work for employers to bring someone and hire someone from not in the US, it's a bit of extra work for them. You have to be a candidate that really stands out for them. So you do have to be one of those better candidates that really are above the pack of all the other people applying. And you have to make it worth it for them to do that extra work. I'd also recommend looking at some of the bigger companies, because a lot of the time bigger companies are already familiar with the process on what they have to do to hire people that aren't already citizens of the US. So for them, it might not be as much of a barrier to hire you, since they've already done it so many times that they know what they need to do, and it's not that big of a deal for them. So definitely apply to all positions, but I'm guessing that you'll have better luck with companies that are bigger. Okay, I'm going to take a little drink here, and then we will keep moving on. Okay. How long is a typical internship? This one is a hard one for me to answer, because in Canada, internships are usually 4 months long, but I have seen that, or 4 months, or sometimes you can get 8-month long internships. But I've seen in the US that sometimes they're only a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks long. So it really depends, and I'm not sure exactly how employers decide how long the internship will be. It might be maybe very project-based. So if they have a project that they need an actuarial intern for, or someone that can do the actuarial work but isn't going to cost as much for them, maybe they have a project or something and it's only going to last 2 or 3 weeks, then they might hire an internship for that. I'm guessing that's what they often do. In Canada, we have co-op programs in a lot of our, well, at least at the University of Waterloo, which is where I went, we had a co-op program. So the internship or co-op, which is basically the same thing, it would last for the whole term because it was part of the credits that we had to get for school. So I think it depends on several different factors here, where you're applying for, or like your geographical area where you're applying, and also how you get the internship and how the employer is hiring for that internship. But basically, any actuarial internship that you can get take it. It doesn't matter whether it's a week or 5 weeks or 5 months. Take what you can get because it is always going to be beneficial for you. Okay, next question. Keep them coming. My first review day is on Monday. What am I supposed to do on review days? Also, I noticed the box to type validation daily notes in the daily notes tab. What is that for? Okay, so when you do your review days, what you should be doing is going through topics that you found difficult throughout the past week. Not everyone has a review day because it depends on when you started and when your exam day is. But if you had enough time for me to add in review days into your schedule each week, then I did. So during those times, you should be going back through and reviewing any topics that you found difficult throughout the past week or so of studying. You can spend some time doing practice questions on those topics because a lot of the time questions really help solidify your understanding. But if you don't have that much time, then just reviewing the topics or the subjects in your study material will also be beneficial. You want to use these review days to try to understand the concepts that you've gone through as best as possible so that by the time you're through the whole manual, you're ready to start your practice questions. The box to type in validation daily notes, you can, if you have any notes that you want to write to yourself, you can write them there just so you don't forget certain things. I don't typically look at those very closely, so if you actually want to tell me something, make sure that you email me and don't just leave a note there because I may not see it. But that note section is just for you. You can write down anything you need to there or you want to. Okay, next question. What questions do they ask during interviews for an entry-level job with 0 internships? Okay, every employer is going to ask different questions, so it's very difficult to say what questions anyone might get. They'll probably ask questions related to your background, your experience. They might ask you some kind of scenario questions like, what would you do in this situation or that situation? I've heard of them asking questions just to show your logical thinking. So, for example, how many trees are there in the US or something like that? They might ask a random question, a seemingly random question like that. But with that, they're just trying to get an understanding of your logical thinking. And you don't necessarily have to get the right answer, but what's more important, they just want to see how you're thinking about that and how you're coming up with an estimate. You might get some Excel-related questions, like I said, or we talked about earlier. Sometimes they do Excel testing in internship or in interviews. If you don't have if you have 0 internships, then your questions probably aren't going to be much different than they would be if you did have internships. And anyway, I guess the moral here is just that when you're preparing for your interview, make sure that you are looking up a large variety of practice questions and make sure that you have answers to all of those questions. When I'm preparing for an interview, what I do is I look up maybe 50 to 100 possible questions. They don't necessarily have to be actuarial related questions, but you should include some actuarial related questions in these 50 to 100 questions. And you should just go through each one and speak your answer out loud to practice what you would say in any situation. For me, I often have a bit of trouble coming up with things to say the first time around. So that's why I like to go through tons of questions before my interview so that I can just get some ideas in my head about what I can say. I don't want to sound robotic or anything like I've rehearsed the answers, but just having all those ideas in my head and being able to come up with them before the interview and practice them before the interview really helps me. So don't worry too much about what specific questions you're going to get. Instead, just practice and prepare for tons and tons of questions, and hopefully when the time comes and they ask you interview questions that are, some of them will be pretty related to the questions that you already asked, is what I'm trying to say. Okay. Next, what other programs would be useful besides Excel and Access? See, this is where I'm not 100% sure, because for me, I pretty much exclusively used Excel and Access, Microsoft Access. In my positions, we also used a program called GGY Access, which my understanding is that it's primarily used in Canada. It is a program that helps you determine premiums and calculate reserves and things like that. So it's a very, very complex program, but there are different alternatives that companies use in different areas. And even in Canada, sometimes employers use different software than GGY Access. And actually, I believe GGY Access is only used primarily for life insurance. It's not used in the casualty, on the casualty side. So unfortunately, I'm not 100% sure what other skills might be beneficial, but go skills course 2. So the TIA technical skills course, it teaches you how to use Excel, VBA, Access, SQL, SAS, and R. So I'm assuming that all those programs are ones that are often used by actuaries. And actually, now that I think about it, I did actually use SAS in my casualty-related internship position many years ago. So that is another one that I guess is very popular. So like I said, as long as you know coding and programming in one language, and if it's VBA, that's even better, but if you know it in a different language, then a lot of the time the same concepts can pretty easily move over to a different coding language. So I don't think that you'd be at an extreme disadvantage if you learned one coding language over another. What's most important is that you know a coding language. Okay. What should I Google for entry-level jobs? Only actuary job? What related jobs would improve my resume for someone who is a beginner in Excel? So I would just put in entry-level actuarial jobs in your city or whatever you're looking for. Actuarial internships, anything that says actuarial in it, you should be able to get pretty good search results in Google. Related positions would be something like data analysis, anything involving statistics, anything in underwriting would be really good, anything in an insurance company where you are involved in the products and understanding how the products work. Actually, in the resume course that you all have access to, you'll be able to, I forget exactly what section it's in, but in one of the sections, I put a list of all the different types of jobs that are kind of related to actuarial work. So you might want to have a look at that list too to get some different ideas on the types of jobs that you could apply to. Data entry jobs are also pretty good because in actuarial work, there's a lot of data entry and there's a lot of numbers and stuff like that. So actually that was my first that was my first internship experience, was a job that was a lot of data entry and keeping track of everything going on in a large database for a company. So that was the experience that I used to be able to get my other actuarial internships. So if you're dealing with a lot of numbers and stuff, that's good. Any financial related positions would be good as well. If you're a beginner in Excel, then you just want to make sure that the job postings that you're applying for don't require require you to be advanced in Excel, but as you start using Excel more and more in the workplace, you will gradually gain more and more experience, and you'll get better at it, and you'll become more advanced. So I wouldn't really be too concerned about specifically finding jobs that are for someone that is a beginner in Excel. Just apply to jobs that you are mostly qualified for. You don't have to, when you're applying for jobs, you don't have to have every single skill and experience that they're looking for. As long as you have most of them, then you should still definitely apply. Okay, hopefully that answers your question on that one. If not, please ask another question about how I can answer it better. Next is, I'm still not sure if I want to be in SOA field or the CAS field. Should I need to know what field I want to be in when I start looking for job opportunities? No. Most people decide whether they want to go the SOA route, which is the Society of Actuaries, and that's life insurance and stuff, or the CAS route, which is the Casualty Actuarial Society, which is property insurance typically. So most people decide whether they want to go the SOA route or the CAS route, just depending on the job that they happen to get when they get their first entry-level job. So I definitely don't think that you should limit yourself by only applying to one type of job or the other. Apply to as many jobs as you can, and worst case scenario is you get none of them, but you're going to get none of them if you only apply to one of them anyway. So maybe you'll get 2 or 3 different offers, and if you do, that's great. You have some options to choose from, and that's when you worry about, or that's when you consider whether you want to go the SOA route or the CAS route. But for a lot of people, you can apply to many different jobs and you'll only get an offer for one of those. So you take that job because that's what you want. You need to get some actuarial experience. So you take that job, and it doesn't matter whether it's the SOA or the CAS route, you take it and you do it just to get that experience. And if you find later that you, for some reason, don't really like the field that you went into for your first position, you can always start looking for other positions 6 months later or 12 months later. You can look for positions in the other side. So if you were in a CAS position, you could start looking for positions in the SOA field and vice versa. So you're not exactly limited to only that one career path at the beginning. Typically, someone that has been in life insurance or the SOA side for 5 or 6 years won't switch over to the CAS side or the casualty side, but because they're just too far into the life insurance side by that time. But at the very beginning, if you really, for some reason, don't like the side that you got your first job in, then you can probably switch over to the other side fairly easily. Okay, do you happen to know how long the TAA technical skills course takes? I don't know exactly, but it will depend on how much time you have to spend on it each day. I would guess that you can probably finish it within a month if you wanted to. I believe, let me look here. Yeah, you get access for 12 months. So they give you quite a bit of time, but I think that you would probably be able to get through it all within a month, especially around, well, if you're really busy around this time of year, maybe you wouldn't be able to get through it as quickly, but I also know that a lot of you may have days off of work and stuff like that around this time, so it may be a good time for you to go through that course and get through it really quickly. Okay, where is the resume course? So if you go in, log into your membership, and you can go to the menu, the first button on the menu says pick your program, I think. So you can go to the study strategy program or the job search program. In the job search program is where you'll find the resume course, and you'll see it in the menu area there. Last question is here. If you have any other ones, please ask them now. I have a couple more on email that I will answer as well, but I don't see any more from you guys on this call. So if you have more, please ask. Okay, next one is how often is calculus used on the job? And the answer to this one is basically never. I never used any calculus at work. So calculus is necessary for your first few exams to pass those first few exams, but after that you don't really use it very much. Okay, that's all the questions for the Q&A that I have here. If you have more questions, be sure to ask them because we're almost done here. I do have a few more that were submitted through email, so I'll get to those right now. Okay, this one is there any ageism in the actuary career for people that are 30 plus, age 30 plus, and are career changers? If so, how do you think that could be overcome with past experience in areas like communications help? Okay, so I've seen many people start their actuarial career later and go on to get positions. A lot of the time, people that are starting the career later in life have a lot of experience that they can utilize towards getting an actuarial position. And so yeah, if you've worked for 5-10 years already, you probably have so much experience that you can bring to an actuarial position. Even if you might not think that it's super related at the beginning, we can work on that in the resume portion of the program to help make that experience that you already have relevant to an actuarial career. But if your past experience isn't highly related to actuarial work, then if it really is your goal to become an actuary, I would recommend that as soon as possible you start looking for positions that are more related to the actuarial career, because that's going to mean that you have some time to work in those positions and gain experience that is really related. At the same time, pass 1 or 2 actuarial exams. So you can do both of those things simultaneously. And then by the end, but maybe like a year, once you have like a year of work and 2 exams passed, which you can do in a year, is pass 2 exams in 1 year, then you're going to be in a very good position to get an actuarial position because you have all that past experience, which can sometimes be related to an actuarial position, plus you have a year of very related actuarial experience, 2 exams, and if you can even add Excel on top of that, then you're going to be in a really good position. You just have to make sure that your resume is displaying your experience in a very good way and showing employers that you are qualified for the position. So that's what I would recommend for someone going into the career at a bit of a later age. Some employers may prefer younger people that are just starting their actuarial career, but others are going to be open to hiring people that have decided to start at a later career. And I really don't think that some employers will consider people that have decided to start later in their career. And I just really don't think that that's going to be a huge barrier for you if everything else goes well. Like you get that related experience, you pass your exams, you get Excel experience, you have a good resume, you do well during your interview. I just don't think that your age is going to be a major factor, especially if you're only in your 30s. Okay, I should have got my other questions open here. Just 1 minute. Sorry, guys. I should have got these open before I even started the call. Okay. So I'm actually going to answer some of the questions that people asked related to, or that they asked for specifically for the podcast. I'm just going to answer them on this call. And for this week, this call is going to be the podcast. So if you guys didn't hear already, I've added a weekly podcast to the membership area. So you can go there. Pretty much I'm just going to be answering questions similar to how I'm doing today. So anyone can write in a question that they have throughout the week. And then at the end of the week, I'll take all the questions that have been asked. I'll answer them in audio format usually. This one's going to be in video, but usually it will be in audio format, and it will just answer any of your actuarial related questions. So, okay, here's the next one. I do not really know what is the best way to search for a job. Since I have no experience in the actuarial related fields, it's hard for me to land a job. I even tried to volunteer to work to help out the underwriting team in an insurance company, but they never responded. How can I get experience if I don't have experience? Sometimes I think it's a bit easier to get an internship while you are in school, but once you're out, it is hard. And that is probably true. Most employers that are hiring for internship positions want to hire someone that is still in school, because it's my understanding that they have, it's beneficial for them to hire someone that is still in school for financial reasons. I think there's some beneficial reason through the government that they want to hire someone that is still in school for internships. But that's definitely not always the case. I actually did get an internship after I was done school, so it can happen. It's just not as likely to get an internship once you're out of school. So if you are having trouble finding a job, I'm actually working with Calvin right now in the resume course, and he did get an interview. So what we've done so far is we've just taken all his past experience and turned it into experience that is more related to an actuarial career. His previous resume was talking about how, like, the different jobs that, or tasks that he did at the job, but now we've transformed his resume so that it's showing more how his previous experience is related to the actuarial experience or the actuarial jobs that he's applying to. So even though he doesn't necessarily have very related experience, we're working on ways to transform what he does have experience with and make it relevant to an actuarial position. But yes, it's going to be hard to get a position if you don't have experience, but that's why you need to make sure that you start early. You start looking for actuarial or related positions early on in your actuarial career, and then you move on to full actuarial positions. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't know this. A lot of people start looking for actuarial jobs right off the bat and don't do much preparation ahead of time. And it's not their fault, because it's hard to know to do this. But what I really recommend, if you can, is to start your related experience early. Like right now, everyone that is not working at a related actuarial position should go start looking for jobs that are related to actuarial work. So when the time comes that you are ready to start applying for actuarial positions, you already have that knowledge and related experience that you can add to your resume, and it's really going to make a big difference. Some people just continue working in a job that's not very related to actuarial work and then suddenly want to jump into an actuarial position, but that makes it really difficult because you don't have that as much knowledge and experience built up. So always try to get a related position as early on as possible, so that by the time you are ready to start applying for jobs and you've passed 1 or 2 exams, then you have the knowledge and experience to back it up, and you can go apply for those actuarial positions and you'll be one of the better candidates then. Okay, so that is what I would recommend. I think that is the last question. Okay, there's one more here. What do you think is the best approach when it comes to trying to find an entry-level position for a mid-career professional switching careers to the actuarial field? So I think we already talked about this a bit during this call. Basically, if you want to get an entry-level actuarial position, it's best if you can start right now in getting related experience, so that by the time you've passed 1 or 2 exams, you have that knowledge and experience to back it up. I also don't really tend to think that your age matters too much in whether actuarial employers will consider you or not. I think it's just a matter of showing how the years of past experience that you already have in another position can be related to the actuarial position or to an actuarial position. You also may have to pass 2 to 3 exams before they'll consider you. For someone that's switching careers, just one exam may not be enough. Of course, you should still apply, but you might have to just be a little more qualified on the actuarial exam side. Also, if you know Excel and have a good resume, then you're really going to stand out. So really, I did a call yesterday or a couple days ago where I talked about this, but if you can make yourself one of the top candidates applying, then you're going to have a really good chance of getting a job, because there are tons of people looking for jobs right now and there just aren't that many jobs available. So in order to get a job, you have to be one of the best candidates. To be one of the top candidates, you have to have 2 to 3 exams passed. You have to have experience with Excel. It's ideal if you have some related knowledge or are properly able to show on your resume how your past experience is related to an actuarial career. And you really need to make sure that your resume is well formatted. It's really good at displaying your experience and everything like that. So to make yourself one of the best candidates is going to be the most important factor. Age won't really have that much impact on whether or not you're able to get a job. Okay, I have one more question here, and I think that is it for today. How can I use my teacher assistant position for my resume? I can start using Excel with student grades. Oh, awesome. Definitely do that. If you're in a current position and you can somehow incorporate Excel into your day-to-day work, definitely do it. That is such a good thing to do. So if you previously weren't keeping track of your student grades or anything in Excel, start doing it now so that you can put that on your resume. And that means that you're starting to use Excel in the workplace, which is awesome. Okay, but what should I do? So if you're starting to track student grades in Excel, you can use Excel to look at trends, calculate averages, determine what the student's final grade was. Maybe you can analyze the data a little bit to see certain areas where your students might need some additional help, just things like that. All of that stuff can be put on a resume and can be really helpful in showing employers that you have experience using Excel and that you're analyzing data and using that data to come to conclusions and get results, and then you actually do something with the information that you found out from Excel. So I would definitely recommend doing something like that. My responsibility is taking quizzes every week, but I can do some work with grades if it helps me with my resume. Yeah, so I'm not 100% sure what you mean by taking quizzes, but if you can track student grades or results or anything in Excel, do that and use Excel to be able to analyze that data and look at it and see maybe where students need help and need some improvement, and also make sure you're doing some calculations with those grades. Maybe you use Excel to calculate their final grade or averages or just anything like that. It's awesome that you're going to be able to start using Excel in your full-time job, even though that wasn't something that you originally were doing. And that's a really good thing for anyone to do. If you can somehow incorporate Excel into your daily work right now, do it, because it's going to be very helpful to add that to your resume. And it may not even be something that you necessarily need to do for your work. Maybe you can just somehow use Excel for I don't know, sorry. You can just use it for anything throughout your day. Maybe it's just tracking numbers for some reason, but any way that you can incorporate Excel into your daily work would be awesome. Okay, one more question. Do you think it's a good idea to write exam IFM in March, even though I didn't really start studying for it? Typically, I recommend at least 18 weeks for exam IFM. You can, I guess it depends if you care about failing or not. You can, if you really want to make sure that you pass it the first time around, then I would recommend July. But if you are okay with possibly failing it, like obviously you can fail at any time, but if that's okay with you, then you can try aiming for March and just hope that you are prepared enough by the time March comes around. I also usually recommend that you wait until the registration deadline to start studying, or sorry, not to start studying, to register for your exam. So don't even register for the March IFM exam until the registration deadline. And at that time, we can have a look to see how well prepared you currently are and whether we think that by the time March comes around, you actually will be ready. If the March deadline to register comes along and we think you still need a lot of work, then at that time, I would recommend taking the exam in July instead. So that's how I would handle that. Okay, that is all the questions for today. I think we answered over 30 questions, so that is a lot. It's been an hour now. So I hope this Q&A helped. Thank you so much all for joining the study strategy program during the Black Friday, Cyber Monday deal. I'm so excited to start working with all of you that haven't already started, and it's been awesome for everyone that I've already started working with. So I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye.